Hey, this is Chris DeSantis from Jersey Wahoos. And today we're going to be diving into a topic that I've had on the agenda here for a couple weeks since it happened. And I want to make sure we get it while it's still fresh. Did Katie Ledecky improve her turns from Tokyo until now? And just to sort of frame this up for you as a topic, I have a podcast called Swim Brief. This is something that we discussed a number of times in regards to the Tokyo Olympics, both at Olympic trials, US Olympic trials. My co-hosts, Joel Rawlings and Eric Weichen, join me weekly. And I have to give them credit for this because they were both the ones who picked up on something at the US Open. Also, they were the ones that picked up on something with Ledecky, both at US Olympic trials and at the Olympics, that something was different with her stroke wise. In addition to that, we noticed something was going on with her turns. And we'll get into that a little bit as I show you a couple videos and we try to figure out, has she really made a significant change in her approach to her turns? The reason why this is relevant is we're talking about basically the top athlete, one of the top athletes in the history of women's swimming. She's continuing to train for the next Olympic cycle, and she's suffered a little bit of, I guess, relative to her top level of success setback. And so it's really interesting to see, is she developing her skills? Is she still able to learn new things and improve things and perhaps give some hope that she's going to have better performance in the future? And then the other part of this is she's changed training locations. So for the last Olympic cycle, she was training with her college program, Stanford University, and she made a move this fall to train at the University of Florida. And that's been a big deal. There's been a lot of pro athletes signaling that they're going to join University of Florida. Caleb Dressel on the men's side as well had been coached by Greg Troy and now sort of coming a little bit more under the college coaching staff bubble. And so, this could be an indication that that change is bearing fruit for her in terms of what's going on with her stroke. So we're going to take a look at two videos. I'm going to share them to the screen. And the first one we're going to look at is just to give you sort of a baseline for what Ledecky's turns looked like at the Tokyo Olympic Games. And I'll give you my opinion on what I see there as we watch it. Okay, so we've got the screen share on. I'm sorry, I gotta do a better job of clicking the optimize for video clip setting. Hopefully this will improve some of the choppiness that you normally see. So we're coming up at a midway turn here in the women's 400 freestyle at the Tokyo Olympics. You can see my mouse is hanging around Ariarne Titmus, and here's Ledecky down here. Now Ledecky is winning the race at the moment. And you can actually see also that she's traveling at a faster speed than Titmus. And that's an important thing to note because watch what happens as this race progresses. Okay, she's at 1.61. You see, actually, as she starts to approach the wall, she's already dropping speed. Titmus is staying at the same speed for this turn. There's something very subtle going on with the turn here for Ledecky, and I want to actually back up and see if we can go into slow-mo so we can see what's going on. Okay. So you see Ledecky's sort of cruising here. She has a typically a very aggressive approach, and she did use some different tactics in the other race. I want you to watch. There's just in my opinion, a little bit of it's subtle. She's a world-class swimmer, so it's not going to look like a age grouper doing these things, but she has a high head position, and she's actually sort of throwing her head to initiate the turn rather than moving her body, which, in my opinion, would be the optimal way to do turn. She's essentially doing something a lot of people do, which is to sort of try to load up the turn. And tactically, this may have been because she actually had an advantage over Titmus in the race in terms of power coming off the wall. You're going to see that in a second. You can see where the two swimmers are in relation to each other. So even though she's not executing ideal form in the way that she does the turn, she may have felt as if like sort of loading the turn in this way was actually giving her an advantage. See that push? It just has more power coming off the wall than Titmus. She's actually gaining advantage with just a couple of dolphin kicks through this part of the race. See if we can get to the next turn. See, we're 15 meters out. Oh, we're gonna get a nice fancy angle. See her head flopping around there. See that head initiating the turn? So her body, we're not going to get this good of an angle at the US Open. Her body is still basically parallel to the water. She's rolling into the turn. And then the body's following. Okay. And of course, Titmus ends up beating her in this race, which some people considered an upset. I don't know. Maybe you didn't. Let's watch what she looks like at the US Open. So I've given us an apples to apples comparison here. We have Ledecky coming in for the halfway turn in the women's 400 free. Already you can see, I mean, even stroke wise, there's a bit of a difference, I think, in what's going on with her head. Her head seems to be in a much more stable position, much less bouncy in the way that she's swimming. Cut off the turn. Now that did look like a little bit head initiated to me as well. We had a quick camera change here. Let's see if we can go back. Let's watch another one where maybe they're not going to change the angle on us and try to go in slow-mo again. She's always been a type of swimmer that has a bit of, I would say, non-textbook head movement. You wouldn't necessarily teach somebody to sort of throw their head around in the way that she does. But certainly her level of performance has warranted, not too much criticism of her form. Okay, so here we have the turn. To me, I sense a little bit more, I'm going to watch it one more time. I sense a little bit more coordination. So here's her last stroke coming into the wall. See if her head comes above that midline. Oh, it comes up a little bit. But I also think at the initiation of the movement, the head is more coordinated with her body. If we watch both of them at full speed, probably going to get a better idea of how crisp these turns are. Yeah, so at full speed, you can see she's still doing the movement. Let's see how that compares to a turn on the other side here executed at full speed. We want to watch this one from midway because we don't have that close in angle. It's easier to compare. Oh, yeah. Let's turn the speed up. You know what? Uh, I'll be honest with you. In watching this over and over again, I think maybe some of the differences, there could be a subtle difference there, but I don't think there's been a significant change. There's not enough change to be explained that, like, oh, here's something she's being really intentional about, in my opinion. I think there's maybe some subtle stuff going on that would make something look a little bit better in certain instances. But just because she has a few good turns in comparison to some of the other turns doesn't necessarily indicate a trend. But I think this is something to keep an eye on with Ledecky, because turns are certainly an area where she could improve. And given that she races in distance races and she's going to have a lot of turns, if she can improve something form wise, it will make a big difference for her, even in a long course race like the 400 free. So thanks everybody for watching and coming on this adventure with me and breaking down a few turns with Ledecky, and check back for more videos.